The moment she stepped into the wedding hall, the entire room seemed to freeze, as if her presence had pulled the air out of every conversation. It wasn't the kind of silence that came from admiration or surprise. It was the cold, uneasy kind of silence that told you everything before a single word was spoken. People shifted in their seats. Eyes narrowed. Whispers rippled across the hall. And yet the woman walked forward slowly, steady and calm, as if she had long accepted the weight of what followed her everywhere she went. She wore a simple dark dress, nothing flashy, nothing meant to draw attention, but somehow she stood out more than anyone in the room. Not because she tried to, just because the world had always found a way to shine a harsh spotlight on her. Her dark skin seemed to strike the crowd like lightning, reminding them of everything they wanted to ignore. She kept her eyes on the floor, her hands folded in front of her, every step careful and respectful, even though no one offered her the same. Around her, beautifully decorated tables overflowed with flowers, candles flickered like little beating hearts, and soft music played in the background. It should have been the kind of day filled with nothing but joy. But the moment she arrived, attention spread through the hall like an invisible fog. Some guests looked annoyed, some looked offended, some just looked shocked that she had come at all. She walked toward an empty chair in the back corner, far from the decorated stage and glowing chandeliers. She didn't expect to sit near the family. She didn't expect a warm welcome. She just wanted to be there. Because someone important wanted her to be there. And that someone, though no one knew it yet, would change the entire room the moment he opened his mouth. She sat quietly, folding her hands in her lap. People stared at her the way they stared at strangers who didn't match the picture-perfect image they had in their heads. A woman in a glittering sari leaned close to her friend, whispering fast, pretending to hide her mouth behind a fan but not trying hard enough. A group of young men smirked and nudged each other, as if her very existence gave them some kind of joke to enjoy. But the woman never lifted her eyes. She knew the pattern too well. Walk in, get stared at, get judged, stay quiet, leave quietly, repeat. Still, she stayed, because today meant something far bigger than anyone there understood. The music shifted to a softer tune, and the wedding ceremony began. Everyone stood, everyone smiled, everyone looked forward with glowing pride as the groom walked in. He seemed confident, handsome, glowing with the joy of someone about to begin a new chapter. His suit was perfectly fitted, his posture straight, his smile wide. People clapped for him, people cheered for him, people loved him, and that was why no one noticed the way his eyes locked instantly onto the woman sitting alone in the back. For a split second, something flashed across his face, shock, emotion, a storm he tried to hide. But he covered it well. He kept walking, and the ceremony continued. The bride entered next, beautiful in every way a bride should be. Her dress shimmered like water, her smile soft and warm. She moved with the elegance of someone who had been raised in the comfort of admiration. Everyone adored her too. The couple stood at the decorated stage, hands joined, eyes glowing. It was the kind of moment families dream about. The kind people film and frame forever. But nothing, not the music, not the flowers, not the smiles, could erase the presence of the woman in the back. Everyone knew she didn't belong, at least not in their eyes. And they made sure she felt that truth in the heavy silence that seemed to wrap around her like chains. The ceremony moved on. Vows were exchanged. Blessings were given. People laughed and wiped tears from their eyes. But the woman sat quietly, her expression unreadable, her gaze soft but distant, as if she was searching for a memory hidden deep inside her chest. When it was time for the groom to give his short acknowledgement, the hall buzzed with excitement. This was the moment people loved, when the groom spoke from the heart about family, friends, and the love of his life. He took the microphone, cleared his throat, and looked around at the crowd with a smile. And then something changed. His eyes drifted past the faces of those who adored him, past the proud smiles, past the glittering outfits and polished jewelry. His expression softened, lost its confidence for a moment, and then settled on the one person no one else wanted in the room. The woman in the back. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath as he opened his mouth. He said her name. The name cut through the hall like thunder. People twisted in their chairs. Some gasped, some frowned. The bride's smile faltered. The groom stepped forward, his voice filled with something raw, something that made the entire room lean in without meaning to. He spoke her name again, louder, stronger, as if reclaiming something the world had tried to bury. A wave of confusion spread through the crowd. People looked at her differently now, not with curiosity, not with judgment, but with the uneasy realization that there was a story they didn't know. A truth they had ignored. And that truth was about to hit them harder than they expected. The groom began to talk, not with rehearsed words, but with the trembling honesty of someone finally telling the world what needed to be said. He spoke about the woman's sacrifices. Her past, her struggles, the storms she had stood through so he could grow. The nights she spent working multiple jobs so he could stay in school. The mornings she woke up early just to make sure he was fed and ready for the day. He painted a picture so powerful that people couldn't look away, even if they wanted to. He told them about how she raised him alone. How she fought for him. How she protected him. How she loved him when the world didn't. And then he said the words that shattered the entire room's silence. He said she was his mother. Not his maid. Not a distant relative. Not a stranger. His mother. The same mother they had judged at first glance. The same mother they had avoided without knowing her story. The same mother whose skin, clothes, and quiet presence had made them uncomfortable. The groom's voice cracked as he explained how she had been shamed all her life, pushed aside, ignored, and underestimated. How people always treated her like she was less. And yet she still gave everything she had for the son she loved more than her own comfort. She never complained, never demanded, never asked for anything in return. He said she wasn't just his mother, she was his hero. The hall fell into a heavy silence, not of judgment this time, but of guilt. Deep, aching guilt that weighed on everyone who had looked at her with cold eyes minutes earlier. The woman finally lifted her head. Her eyes glistened with tears she tried so hard to hold back. She wasn't used to attention. She wasn't used to praise. Her life had taught her to stay small, stay quiet, stay invisible. But today, her son's voice pulled her into the light she deserved. People stared at her with wide eyes, realizing how wrong they had been. How fast they had judged. How shallow their assumptions were. One by one, their expressions softened. Some looked ashamed. Some wiped tears. Some lowered their heads. Even the bride looked moved, her earlier hesitation replaced by something more genuine. The groom walked down the aisle, slowly, steadily, like a man walking toward the center of his soul. He approached his mother and reached for her hands. She hesitated, but he held them gently, lifting her to her feet as if she were royalty. He wrapped his arms around her, and the room watched a moment so raw, so emotional, that even the air seemed to tremble. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was something far deeper, the quiet truth of a love that had carried him all his life. He brought her to the front, guiding her to a seat of honor, placing her beside his bride's parents. The same people who had looked at her like she didn't belong now looked at her with newfound respect. She didn't know what to do. She sat small, humble, overwhelmed. But she sat there, finally seen, finally valued, finally acknowledged for the strength she had always carried. The rest of the ceremony felt different. The air was warmer. The smiles were more genuine. People approached her with gentle words, awkward apologies, soft admiration. She accepted everything quietly, kindly, the same way she had accepted every hardship in her life, with grace. As the wedding came to an end, the groom walked her out, arm linked with hers, making sure the world saw her not as someone to avoid, but as someone worth celebrating. For the first time in her life, she walked through a crowd that didn't look through her, but truly looked at her. And she held her head a little higher. Not out of pride, but out of relief. Out of healing. Out of the simple, powerful truth that her story had finally been heard. People would remember that wedding forever, not for the decorations, not for the music, not even for the vows. But for the moment the groom said her name and changed everything. For the moment a room full of strangers finally understood that behind every quiet face there is a life, a history, a pain, a strength they can't see. And the woman walked away from that hall knowing one thing for sure. Her son had given her the one gift she never asked for but always deserved. A place in the light. A place in the world. A place where her name meant something. And for the first time ever, she allowed herself to believe she belonged there.